Furious Driving, proud to be supported by Diamond Bright, protecting, cleaning and caring for the Furious fleet and for yours with 10% off using code FD10. Bidding Classics, the online classic car marketplace with more cars added every week. And Lancaster Insurance cover the Furious fleet. They are one of the biggest specialist insurers in the UK, covering all areas of vintage to modern classic cars and motorbikes. Follow the links in the description below. Hello and welcome to Furious Driving, and this is my 2002 or 3, I can't remember, Rover 75 1.8 turbo, which was brought into the fleet as part of the flip-on trade-up challenge. Although I did find I was quite fond of the thing, but I'm still determined to sell it, even though I get emails most days saying please don't sell it, it's my favourite. Do you want to buy it? In that case. Anyway, the car has been surprisingly well behaved. Now, apart from cutting out on the motorway a few times, it's not really put a foot wrong. We've changed the steering wheel, we've now done the coil packs as well as the full service, with including spark plugs. I haven't driven it far enough in one go to cause it to cut out again, so it's still very much Schrodinger's misfire, in that the only way I'm going to find out if it's broken or not is to drive it until it eventually breaks. But as it's a very long drive, I may never actually reach that point. So anyway, as far as I know, it's now a very good car and I've been using it a fair deal. But there is one new problem, and I've been driving around with the camera recording in the car to try and record it, and whenever I've got the camera rolling, it doesn't happen, and as soon as I turn the camera off, it instantly happens, and basically it sounds like someone is lying under the car, Indiana Jones style, hammering on the floor with a mallet or something. It's quite disturbing and a little unsettling. It's the kind of thing that makes you not want to drive the car in case it's something very serious. And I've kind of got two ideas of what it might be. Either I think it's probably going to be something really, really simple, like the exhaust hangers have gone and it's thumping the exhaust into the chassis of the car, or it's going to be a wheel bearing, or it's going to be a rear subframe bush has gone, because generally it's under acceleration, just pulling away from low speed, just as there's a little bit of judder as the clutch takes up, or give a speed hump, or just sort of going through the gears, normally under 30 miles an hour. I've not really noticed anything above that, so yeah, hopefully it's nothing serious. Alternatively, I don't know what else it could be. A drop link somewhere, or I don't know, a clutch maybe even. But it sounds half the time like it's in the back of the car, and a lot of the time like it's right underneath the handbrake just here. So yeah, we've got a few different things. Could even be a prop shaft UJ that's starting to fail as well, because it's that under load kind of thing. So I need to get underneath the car and have a look at it, see what I can see. So going to jack it up, take off the back wheels and figure out what's clonking. I think we should call this video, What's That Clonk? Okay, so first up, I did check the wheel was actually bolted on tightly before I did anything else. That seemed like an obvious one, but is it actually going to rock or wobble on the hub? No, that is rock solid, so we've not got a dodgy handbrake, haven't got a dodgy wheel bearing. Right, let's put the wheel off, see if we can see anything underneath there. Okay, so both wheels are off the ground and one of them is off the car, so we can try and investigate what's going clonk. Now, I have suspicions about two areas. First of all, I suspect maybe the subframe bushes are doing something that they shouldn't do, but it doesn't feel like there's any movement of any kind in there whatsoever. The second option is the exhaust, because I've read that if the exhaust hangers go, yeah, that sounds more like it. It's down in the middle. I've lost an exhaust hanger in the middle, that's the problem. That must be it. Okay. So at least that's an easy fix. Right, I'm going to have to go under there, work out which one it is. Axle stands will be used, or possibly just run it down to a fast fit place, and yeah, get a new exhaust hanger on that. Incidentally, this does look like good metal with just a tiny bit of surface rust on there, and because I don't want this to wind up looking like the Crown Victoria, which you can probably see in the background over there, I am going to be wax oiling this. As soon as I get paid, I'm going to go and buy a bunch of built amber stuff and go over this entire chassis and the cavities to make the thing very, very lovely indeed. Could that really be it? That seems far too easy, to be honest, doesn't it? Can't believe it, honestly, it's just that. I've got no other movement of anything. There is not a millimetre of movement in anything on this thing, which is odd, because it must be the exhaust, I'm sure. So let's put this wheel back on and try and figure out where on earth that missing rubber hangers should be. Right, so it's a massive thank you to Commercial Tyres, who took a look at the car, put it on the ramp, and pretty much instantly identified what I thought it was as being the exhaust hangers, but not actually missing one as we thought. I had a look underneath the car and said none of them are missing. There's only about 3 of them. There's 2 up here at the front, which you can see on the video I shot on the phone, and 1 at the back, but they've all gone a bit kind of stretched and slack. So where the cross member brackety thing in the middle is, every time the car goes over a bump at low speed, it's thumping into that. You can see it happening just when he shakes the thing. That's where the clonking is happening, and it's right underneath the middle of the car, right underneath this armrest. So that's why it sounds like it's coming from the middle of the car and occasionally from the back of the car, because it's the exhaust pipe. Though very kindly indeed, they've changed all of the exhaust hangers, and guess what? I'm driving around trying to find any bumps and speed humps and things to go over and pulling away repeatedly, and guess what? No more thumps. We have got rid of the terrifying clonk from underneath the car, which is great. Now I just need to try and find a day to drive it far enough to go and see if we really have cured the cutting out problem, but I don't think I'm ever going to manage to do that. So I think I'm just going to have to bite the bullet, spend another 25 quid and buy the crank position sensor and just change that as a precaution, because honestly there's no reason not to do it for £25. It's just an hour or so of faffing underneath. Because it's the turbo version, you have to access it from underneath the car. You have to take the bottom covers off and go in. It's where the bell housing and the engine meet, and it's on the top, but the turbo's in the way, so you have to kind of it's a thing that's easier on the ramp, put it that way. But it's not an expensive part, and it's not a difficult thing to change if you can reach it, but it's worth doing though, I think. Now there's only 1 or 2 minor things left to do on this car today, and I'll quickly do them and then we'll have the video ended. I just realised I've left the rear interior light on when I was fiddling with it earlier, and that is one of the things we're going to come back to in a minute. Lucky we've got a good new battery in this car now. Let's get this thing parked up and do a little bit more tinkering. Now this isn't something I set out to do today, but it came in the post, so I'm going to fit it anyway. This is a boot badge, and that is a very, very faded boot badge. You can actually feel a slight difference in quality because this one is actually embossed, whereas this one's only flat. The difference is that this one is a wheel centre badge, which cost under £3. The actual proper boot badges cost about 12, and because I'm cheap and no one's going to know the difference, I'm going to put a wheel centre badge on there and save a tenner. So I've got a knife blade in here just to lift the corner. Now I can pry it away with a screwdriver because it's only held on by gum, and this should improve the look of the back of the car just ever so slightly. There we go. Bit prettier all of a sudden. Ta-da! Now this last one is a full-on Sunday morning spec repair, hence the coffee, because we are easy like Sunday morning, and that is the Faith No More take rather than Lionel Richie. And this is this rear light, because this is a constant bugbear of 75 and MGZT owners. This rear light just falls out of the ceiling. I was very well aware of it because you can see it every single time you look in the mirror. A few people have also commented on it. Trust me, that was an unnecessary comment, I knew. Let me take this off and I'll show you in more detail. Right, so we've got a pair of little metal tags here on the front of the light. On the back, there's little metal plastic clips that hold it against the ceiling. Nice and easy, except they always break off, and I've seen lots of repairs where people have spent ages gluing plastic clips back on, fabricating stuff, but frankly the easiest thing to do is to put a wood screw in there and just whack it straight in there, which is what I'm going to do. Right, so got ourselves a drill and what looks like too big a screw, but it's actually got to go quite a long way out of the body of the light, so big screw it is. I'm just going to tap that into there. Quite a solid lump of plastic is there. There we go. And that can just screw into there. Just a couple of turns because I don't want to go too far into the body, and also I want to stick out quite a long way. That should be sufficient. Excellent. Now we could, at this point, be upgrading these to LED lights as well, or LED bulbs anyway, for a less power draw and brighter light, but I quite like the incandescent glow. It kind of suits the character of this car. Maybe I will upgrade it later because I've put LEDs in the coupe and the Mini and a couple of others, and it is usefully bright, but it's just, you know, nicely ambient in this particular car. So let's reconnect the connector. The screw does the job of what the original latches do, which sits inside the headlining, and on this side, on the front edge I should say, those just push straight through and clip up, and there we go, a non-dropping rear light. Bonus! Right, there we go. A number of improvements to the 75 again. The clonker's gone. The badge on the back, which is embarrassingly bad, is now fixed. The light is no longer falling out of the ceiling, and I don't know if you did anything else in this video, I can't remember. But anyway, the car continues to be good and fun and usable, and the air conditioning, as we're now finding out in this nice hot weather, works really well. However, I have been talking to people who know about such things, and I've been advised that if I was going to sell this car, to put it up for high threes, maybe even £4,000, and sort of work down from there with negotiation. And I know the thing with selling Rovers is that no one talks down the value of Rovers worse than Rover owners. And whatever I put this car up for, I'm going to be told by 1,000 people that I'm an idiot, I don't know what I'm talking about, they sold their car for 500 quid and I'm ripping anyone off if I ask for a penny more than that. But that's not how the car market works anymore. And cars like this, in this condition, with this mileage, are worth surprisingly large amounts of money. So ultimately, this thing will have to go because there's too much profit in it. But for the meantime, I am enjoying it. There's a few more things to do to it. I need to sort out the lock on the passenger door, which is exactly the same as the Freelander did. Same component even. So hopefully that will turn up in the coming days. I'm sure there's something else, but I can't think of it right now. But I will say, thanks again. I mentioned this in the last Junk in the Trunk, which is over on T-Brake channel right now. This Rover seat organiser turned up in the previous Junk in the Trunk. I've never seen one before. It's a genuine, super rare Rover accessory, so massive thank you for sending this one in. I don't dare use it and stretch it, but having it on the back of the car seat is just such an amazing, authentic bit of Roveriness. It's great when you could put your phone in there. If I ever have backseat passengers in here, they've got all their organisation needs taken care of. It's quite cool, really. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, you know the drill. Head over to furiousdriving.co.uk where there are mugs of all the cars, t-shirts, broken Rovers, shattered dreams. For example, today I should do one of broken Crown Victorias and shattered dreams. That would be more appropriate at the moment. And don't forget, channel members and channel Patreons do get 10% off in the channel store. So that's worth remembering. Anyway, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you again next time. Well, I think it's going to be the Crown Victoria next. Furious Driving, proud to be supported by Diamond Bright, protecting, cleaning and caring for the furious fleet and for yours, with 10% off using code FD10. Bidding Classics, the online classic car marketplace with more cars added every week. And Lancaster Insurance cover the furious fleet. They are one of the biggest specialist insurers in the UK, covering all areas of vintage to modern classic cars and motorbikes. Follow the links in the description below.